In this digital painting where I'm painting the Grand Canyon, I'm first using a 3-part grid to figure out my composition. So I have the rule of thirds grid, the diamond grid, and the centerline grid. Now, I'm not going to go into super detail about grids in this video because there's so much you could talk about with them, and it honestly deserves its own video. But you can see here that I'm doing a quick, rather sloppy, but it works for me, black and white line drawing to really figure out where my main elements are going to be. As you can see, my focal point is that I want that really prominent rock jutting out of the warmer precipice with that beautiful shadow. I want the eye to go there, and it happens to hit the center of the painting, the center line, I mean. Now, a lot of times people think that, oh, it's not good to place stuff right in the center or at the center line. And that's not necessarily true. It's all about how you design the elements around it and really how you want to guide the viewer around your painting. So I want to use all those lighter shapes in the background where you can really barely tell those rocks coming out in the blue atmosphere to lead your eye in a sort of S-curve to that main center area. So as you can see, I'm thinking about all those things. And, nothing should really be an accident when you're designing. And the thing with Photoshop that's really cool is that you can shrink things, transform things, and it definitely makes it a lot easier to be able to change up things, change up your design, come up with different designs in a heartbeat. So I'm kind of starting over again. Maybe now I think, what if I place that rock closer to the center, closer to where all the lines of the grids intersect? How would that feel? So if you're new to painting, I encourage you to not commit so fast to one design. It's good to play around, and it's good to see what different designs you can come up with. So as you can see, when I turn off the grids, it's just a really simple line drawing. The grids are there to help me block out my main important masses and shapes, but I'm not going to leave them on the entire time because they can get kind of distracting, and you don't want to be tethered to the grids, right? The grids are a design mechanism, a tool to help you design your composition better, but you shouldn't be tethered to grids, I believe, throughout your whole painting. So I'm about to start off with my color now. And as with traditional painting, I always start off with a tone. And in this case, I'm just doing a solid tone, no texture, no nothing, with just a burnt sienna color. And this is going to really help me because a lot of the foreground is more of a warmer tone, right? It's almost split in half, where the foreground is a warmer tone and then the background is much cooler. All those rocks are being pushed back in a beautiful blue atmosphere, and you can really tell the difference. Now, where I really want to push the color hue shifts and play with hue and color shifts, is the shadows of that rock area that's jutting out. So that really prominent shadow right there, I really, really want to have some fun hue shifts with that. And now here in the foreground, right, a lot of it is the same value. So what I'm doing right now is I'm really quickly just figuring out the planes of my masses, where are the planes horizontal and facing the sky, and where are they going down and vertically facing down? Because everything is kind of flat, it helps to figure out the plane changes in my rock shapes. So if you pull up a painting by Kwang Ho, as you can see here, I love this painting he did of the Grand Canyon. And it is so beautiful how he just has so much intricacy. But when you squint and you step back, you can see it's a very simple value structure. And I want to kind of maintain that with this painting, right? There might be a lot of complexity in the foreground. You see all the little tiny trees and everything. But when you squint, you really see simple planes, simple value structure. So how am I going to start off this painting first? I'm probably going to start off with just blocking out what will help carve out my main shape. So that prominent shadow area, that will help carve out the light side of the rocks, right? So if I put that in, and because I already have my canvas toned, I will already be able to really have light and shadow established, and I will have form established. So right now, the tool I'm using is the U tool. The U tool is on the tool panel on the left-hand side, and I'm using the rectangle U tool. And what I really like about this tool is that it forces me to put down really simple graphic shapes, almost like different sized pixels. So I don't have to worry about the brush, the texture, anything. I'm not bothered with any of that because I don't have those options. So I am really just focusing on blocking out the biggest shapes and the biggest masses that I can see. And it might look really abstract at first. It's probably going to look really abstract for the longest time, but that's the whole point. The restrictions of this brush, I can't even rotate it. So it's really just putting down straight rectangles of different lengths and different widths, depending on how long or how wide you drag it down onto the canvas and creating an illusion of light and shadow and form. Now, because this brush has no opacity, it really encourages me and forces me to choose colors of the correct value. You know, I can't just guess around. I have to really be bold. Now what I'm doing is I'm using one of my favorite block-in brushes, and now I'm just blending the shapes a little bit more, right? I put in those nice graphic pixelized shapes, and now I'm just taking a brush with a little bit more texture, a little bit more ease at the end of the brush that has a little bit more taper. And now I'm starting to really blend those shapes in a little bit more, but not too much that I lose all the edges. I still want to maintain a level of crispness in my shapes. Now you can see I went back to the U tool and I need to find that sort of sense of graphicness again. So you'll find throughout my painting, I go back and forth like this. When I'm feeling like shapes need to be blended, I might either smudge shapes or take a brush with a little bit more texture and start using that brush. And then if I find that I need more hardness, more graphicness, I'll revert back to the U tool, or I will revert back to the simple, hard, round brush. That is a default on Photoshop. You just add a taper to the end so you can get nice, thin shapes. And I love that brush. I always go back to that brush every time I need simplicity and I need directness. So very quickly, as you can see, in a matter of minutes, right? I've basically blocked in my 3-value structure. You know, the foreground, the shadow of the rock jutting out, which is the darkest value in the whole painting. And then the background, which honestly could be grouped basically to 2 values max. And then the sky. So in a painting, I like to say that, you know, you should really have 5 most important masses, more than 5. And maybe the painting might start getting too complex and too hard for the eye to read. Of course, it's not a set rule, but it's something good to keep in mind. So in this case, I have the mass, the foreground mass, the red. I'm grouping the shadow and the light together. And then I have the background, the blue, the ocean of blue, and then the sky. So I really see 3 main masses, kind of like a very interesting triptych. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I'm blocking my light and shadow shapes. I don't want to lose the simple idea of that design. So now I'm going back to the U tool again. Sometimes I'll go back to my favorite block-in brush tool. I do not make any of my brushes, by the way. These are from work or from other places, so I can't share some of them. But really, my philosophy is that if you know how to work, if you understand the fundamentals in painting, you can really work any brush. You can do a beautiful painting with just the hard round brush, or maybe have a beautiful painting with all lost edges. It's really about understanding and harnessing those fundamentals that will make or break a great painting from a good painting, that will distinguish a great painting from a good painting.